Studying in high school is radically different from studying in college. I, for one, have found the switch from high school to Cornell to be insane. However, having been in college for a bit of time now, there are a ton of things I wish I had known back in high school that would have made my life infinitely easier. Today, I'm going to share those tips with you. What is up, YouTube? My name is Aidan Helfant. I'm a freshman Cornell University student who makes videos on life advice as well as learning and fitness. I will start off by explaining why I think studying smarter is worth it in the long run. I will then discuss the common pitfall most high school students fall into when studying. Finally, I will go into some actionable tips and things you should keep in mind before, during, and after class to dominate your classes. Study smarter, not harder. Most high school students don't understand the benefits of learning how to study smarter. They never sharpen the saw before cutting down the tree. Sharpening the saw is an idea brought about in the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. According to Covey, highly successful people take the time to sharpen the saw before they begin with any task. If you were going to chop down a tree, would you not take the time to sharpen your blunt axe beforehand? This same concept should be applied to studying. Learning how to study effectively actually saves you insane amounts of time in the long run. Studying smarter gives you more time to hang out with friends and do what you want. I can say after adopting better studying habits that I have at least an extra hour or two every day to hang out with friends and do what I want. The common high school study trap. Nobody tells you how to study in high school, which leads to bad habits building up over time. I, for one, fell into the trap that 80% of high school students fall into. Passively rereading the textbook and notes to study for tests. This is by far the most common studying technique used by almost every single student in high school. In the moment, this technique can lead to some astounding results. Mass cramming keeps the information stored in your mind in the short term, usually long enough to pass the test the following day. The problem comes after the test is over. Mass cramming may lead to memory retention in the short term, but it facilitates mass forgetting in the days after the test. If you want to see a ton of videos on study techniques that are much more effective for long-term learning, check out my video summarizing Make It Stick. It goes much more into depth on how we can study more effectively for the long term. However, the main takeaway is that passively rereading and highlighting the textbook is not an effective study strategy. When reading the textbook is okay. One critical thing to note is the difference between understanding and memorizing. In order to memorize something, you have to first understand it. Otherwise, you would just be memorizing useless facts that have no meaning. Passively rereading the textbook is terrible for memorizing and retaining information. However, it is a fantastic resource for learning/understanding the material in the first place. This book goes much more into depth than you will need to go for your actual test. I recommend that when you're first learning a chapter, use the textbook as much as you need to actually understand the information. Once understanding has been achieved, however, the textbook has essentially served its purpose. Don't fall into the trap of continued rereading and highlighting. Before class. Effective studying is a process that begins before class. In college, every lecture has a reading that must be completed beforehand. This means students never go into the lecture blind to what the professor discusses. Studies show that coming into the lecture with a slight understanding of the material beforehand actually facilitates further learning. Less focus is put on understanding the material and more on facilitating it into long-term memory. I am not saying that you have to do an in-depth reading of the classwork before your classes. You're still in high school. I think you should politely ask your teacher for a class syllabus that outlines the main topics and subtopics you will go over during the school year. Some teachers haven't planned this far ahead and might not give you something for the entire year, but a week or a month is enough. By skimming the sheet every now and then, you'll be able to get a rough idea of what to expect during class. One of the main ways to learn things in the long term is by connecting ideas between topics. Having a rough idea of how the topics you are learning connect can do leaps and bounds to make you understand the material more effectively. Another critical part of getting ready for class is choosing your seat. Now, many teachers make assigned seats for their classes, but you can still ask them for a switch nonetheless. The mistake a lot of high schoolers make is they sit directly next to their friends. The problem is that this leads to an insane amount of distraction. Your friends might hate you at the moment, but it would be best if you sat a little farther away from them, or at least ask them to quiet down. They might be super annoyed at the moment, but the fact is that you're studying more effectively will allow you to hang out with them more. Once they start feeling the benefits of the exchange, they will no longer complain. During class. Most high school students don't do anything other than listen during class. The problem is that if you don't take notes, you have nothing to study or make flashcards out of afterward. A lot of teachers don't share their slides or lesson plans before or after class. Instead, they write on the white or smartboard and get rid of it after class ends. This is why it's so important to take notes of some sort. These don't have to be comprehensive by any means. As long as you start getting into the habit of writing some main points and ideas down during the class period, you will be doing way better than 99% of high school students out there. Writing notes also helps you keep awake. It's insane how many students cannot seem to keep their eyes open during class. It seems like as soon as their heads hit the table, they're out. Writing notes gives your body something to do while class is going on. This makes it much harder to fall asleep. After class. All right, so it's after class and you have a quiz coming up. Most high school students wait until the quiz is the following day and cram. As said before, this type of studying might work in the short term, but it's terrible for facilitating long-term information in the long run. If you want to study smarter, it's best to start seriously about 3 days in advance. I would extend the time to 2 weeks in college, but the tests are much more manageable in high school. As long as you study for 45 minutes or so every day, 3 days before a quiz, you should be good. Like I said before, if you want some actual study methods during these study sessions, watch my video on Make It Stick. I would extend this period to a week for big exams, and for finals, I would start studying 2 weeks in advance. Then all you have to do is make the testing date really obvious. As soon as your teacher announces when the next test will be, either put it very clearly in your digital calendar or print one out and hang it up in your room. This way, your brain will never be able to forget the fact that you have a quiz or test coming up. It's sitting there right in front of you every time you enter your room or open your calendar. If procrastination is still your problem, watch my video on how to kill procrastination. It outlines how to beat the forces that keep us from doing the work we know we need to do. The importance of using study halls. Use your study halls, for goodness sake. I know it can be really tempting to spend them playing games and talking with others, and that's totally fine. It's when every single one of them is spent like this that we have a problem. Study halls have been given to you for a reason. They're a valuable point in the day that you can use to do homework for upcoming classes, study for exams, and occasionally have some fun with friends. Despite this fact, I almost never saw kids using their study halls in high school. Why? Start using your study halls for just 2 weeks and you will see the astounding benefits I am talking of. Summary. All right, that about sums it up for my high school study tips. Like I've said, I don't think high school is too bad if you know what you're doing beforehand. As long as you study smarter using some or all of these tips, I am confident that you will be able to breeze through your classes and have much more time to do things you want to outside of school. Studying smarter in high school is so important because it will allow you to get more out of your studying in less time. you will actually have more time to hang out with friends and pursue personal hobbies. The first step is to stop falling for the classic study trap, passively rereading and highlighting the textbook to study. Studying smarter starts before class by getting your teacher to give you a rough lesson plan for the following week or month. This will allow you to have a rough idea of what you are learning before the class. Sitting away from your friends or telling them to quiet down will lead to much less distraction. Start taking some rough notes during class. This will give you material to make flashcards off of and make it less likely that you will fall asleep during class. Finally, try and make the dates of quizzes, tests, exams, and finals very obvious so that you never fall into the trap of having to study one night before. For little tests and quizzes, studying 3 days before is probably fine. And for bigger exams and finals, a week or two is probably better. If you watched this far, it's clear that you care about learning to study more effectively. If you want to see how much more comprehensive my information can go, check out my videos on studying in college and my video on building a second brain. These videos go much more into depth on how we can up our learning habits and adopt a growth and learning mindset.